Hello, this is Everton Fan 77 with episode 2 in the Rising Football Star series. Now for today's episode, I will be talking about Marco Rojas. Now you may have never heard of him before, probably because he only does play in the Hyundai A-League, which compared to other leagues in the world like EPL and Liga BBVA, it is not the most popular, but nevertheless, he is still a fantastic young talent which the A-League has produced. He plays for Melbourne Victory and he is also a huge part of this young New Zealand squad, or not necessarily young New Zealand squad, but developing New Zealand squad as such. He plays a huge role in that and will be massive for New Zealand's qualifying campaign. Now you may have heard of him before, probably because he's got beast stats on FIFA. So you may not have heard of him because he plays in the A-League, but you still could have heard of him because he has beast stats in FIFA. But nevertheless, he's got so much more than that. He plays for Melbourne Victory, as I mentioned before, and he's probably having the best season out of anyone in this Hyundai A-League season. He's been so influential for Melbourne Victory. He plays as a winger or as an attacking midfielder. He's very good at either role, and yeah, his game style, his main strength is his speed. Now, when Melbourne Victory play counter-attacking football, he's just huge for them because of his pace. Now, either as a winger, he can be played clean through and throw in a cross for the striker, which is generally Archie Thompson, or he can play through Archie Thompson as attacking midfielder. Now, also, what else he can do is he can be played clean through himself. He can, as on the counter-attack, he can go one-on-one with the goalkeeper. But what else is he can support the striker when they're one-on-one with the goalkeeper, so the striker can just play it across to him. Because he just leaves the defenders behind with his speed. The defenders can't keep up with him, and he just gets the tap in because he supports the striker. Kind of like a sweaty goal kind of thing, but in real life football, you shouldn't really call it a sweaty goal because those goals are still quite handy because it's a good result of team play. But what else he is he has the title of the Kiwi Messi. Now, obviously, he's not on the same level as Leo Messi, but he is still very talented. But the main reason why he's called the Kiwi Messi is because of his dribbling kind of ability. His game style is quite similar. He has a low center of gravity. I'm not sure how tall he is, but he's not very tall. He has great balance as well because of his low center of gravity and his speed. This really makes him so much like Messi. He just leaves the defenders behind in the Hyundai A-League as he just maneuvers in and around all of them. He's just a great young talent as well, as I mentioned before. Now, what else? Obviously, it's likely that he will move to Europe in the coming seasons, but he has a huge advantage over a lot of other young players moving there. He's both-footed. Now, in Europe, compared to Australia, you get so much less time on the ball. In the A-League, you get a bit of time to dwell on it, not in the EPL. You get absolutely no time whatsoever. The very fit defenders are closing in on you, so you don't get time to bring it back across onto your stronger foot. So this doesn't really affect Rojas in that part of the game, however, because he is both-footed, so he can shoot and pass on either of his feet, which will be so handy and a massive bonus heading over to Europe. He is also he doesn't necessarily have a powerful shot as such, but he can place his shots he can find the top corner from distance, which is something not a lot of players can do. Most long shot goals just players shooting with all the power they've got and hoping for the best. Rojas has got a bit more finesse about his shooting. Not necessarily has a huge amount of power, but he can find the top corner from quite a fair bit out, and he's got quite a bit of curve on his shot as well, so he can curl them in from quite a bit out as well. But yeah, that's basically Rojas' game style. It's actually, as far as his shooting go, I talked about this last episode with Kevin De Bruyne. He actually is pretty similar. The only difference I would say is De Bruyne has a bit more power behind his shot, whereas Rojas has a bit more finesse. But also, Juventus and Liverpool both targeted him last transfer window, so obviously the big European clubs are looking for him as well. And I think either one of those clubs would suit him because they are both very good at promoting youth. He is 21 years old. Yeah, I'm pretty sure he's 21. Turning 22 this year. So a likely move in the summer would probably be the best possible move for Rojas because he's 21. He doesn't really have too much time left to make a big move to Europe because yeah, you need time to develop as a player in Europe, both in your abilities and mentally. So I think if he moves at, say, the age of 25, he won't really have time, as far as his abilities go, to develop in the most competitive region of football in the world. So I think he has to move as early as possible, and I hope he does. Unfortunately for Melbourne Victory in the A-League is not the place for Rojas. He's too talented for that, and he has to go abroad, I believe. if he moves, I think he'd actually be really. I think he'd suit the EPL a lot because it is the most physically dominant league in the world. Obviously, people will compare EPL and Liga BBVA to each other, but there is no denying that EPL is so much more physically competitive than Liga BBVA, and he's not necessarily the strongest person, but he's got the speed and skill for the EPL. He has the speed. He might have to work on his stamina a bit. He's not the fittest player, but definitely as far as the A-League goes, his fitness does the job. But when he moves to Europe, he'd have to work on his stamina a bit. I think the right club for him to go to would probably be, obviously Liverpool and Juventus were both interested in him. They still might be interested in him, but Juventus would obviously be a great move for him because they're good at managing their young players as well. You've seen the revelation of Paul Pogba this season. Not necessarily their product of their own youth, but as he signed from Manchester United, he was quite underrated as he was heading in. And then this season, you've just seen what he's done. He's done so well at Juventus, but I think Liverpool is the right move to him. Brendan Rodgers is a fantastic manager at promoting youth. As we've seen this season, he's rejuvenated the careers of Jordan Henderson, and also other young players like Wisdom. I can't remember them all, but yeah, he's done. Raheem Sterling, can't believe I didn't mention him earlier. He's been an absolute revelation this season for Liverpool as well. So Liverpool probably the right club. Brendan Rodgers is great at promoting youth, and obviously if he's a new signing, Rodgers would feel a bit, not necessarily pressured, but he'd want to play him as a new signing. Managers always want to give them game time, and I think if he moves to Liverpool, he'll get quite a. Rodgers is a fair manager as well. I think he'd get a good chance at the first team as well to prove himself in Europe. And yeah, I think Liverpool is the right place for him to go if he does move to Europe. But that's not necessarily going to be the case. A lot of other clubs could be interested in him as well. I think the EPL is the right league. I think he's got what it takes to play in the EPL, provided he works on his stamina a bit. But I think I'd much rather see him go to England than say, oh, Juventus wouldn't be so bad, but I think Werder Bremen or Werder Bremen, however you like to say it. I think for my last episode of Rising Football Stars, I said it wrong the whole time, so I apologise for that. But I think Werder Bremen were interested in him, or Werder Bremen. I'll just say Werder Bremen. Werder Bremen were interested in him as well in the last transfer window, but they didn't sign him. I'd much rather see him play for Liverpool or Juventus than Werder Bremen. It's just my opinion. I think he's got what it takes to play at one of the top European clubs in Juventus or Liverpool as they're developing, returning to their former glory. Not quite their former glory, but they're on the rise again. Now, on the international scene, if New Zealand make the 2014 World Cup, he'd definitely make it in. I think he'd be the first player on any manager's list who would be on the... I think it's Ricky Herbert who's the New Zealand manager at the moment, but for any manager who would manage New Zealand, he'd be the first player on the list heading into that 2014 World Cup. Just a great player, and he would have developed, well, provided injury and suspension, or not so much suspension, but provided he stays free of injury, and even if he moves to a top European club, this will help him even more. His development, he'll be an even better player by the 2014 World Cup as well. So yeah, I think he'll definitely make it into the 2014 World Cup. Also, another great thing about Marco Rojas is he's got his head in his ground. He's a very humble player. A lot of young players around the world are quite, not necessarily arrogant, but they get lots of media attention and it basically gets to their head a bit. Marco Rojas, it doesn't look like the media, especially in Australia, because not too much attention is put on football, I guess, but it doesn't look like any media attention at all has basically affected him. His head is on the ground. I've read a few interviews. I have an Australian football magazine, and there was a really good interview with Marco Rojas on that, and he's just a very humble guy, down to earth, and I think that's a great characteristic to have, particularly in football as well, because there's so much media attention and that can often get to players' heads, but he keeps his head in the ground and he works really hard as well. So it's great for a player in football it's great to see that for a good young player in football to have a good attitude as well. So yeah, that's basically Marco Rojas. Also YouTube him as well, as I think he is a great young player. A lot of a lot of players, a lot of fans who have watched him play want their clubs to sign him, want the European clubs they support to sign him as well. So yeah, he's popular amongst the fans as well. So yeah, check him out definitely. This has been Everton Fan 77 with episode 2 in the Rising Football Stars series. I hope you enjoyed this episode. If you have any suggestions or criticisms, leave it in the comment section below. I'm open to constructive criticism, not just ones like, oh, piss off, you don't know anything. But like basically, open to criticism, telling me where telling me where I went wrong, and also where I can improve as well, rather than just the troll kind of YouTubers that just tell me I suck and nothing else really. They don't tell me at all how to improve. But yeah, that's basically what I'm asking from this video. But yeah, this has been Everton Fan 77 with another episode, or my second episode of Rising Football Stars. See ya.